Okay, this is a pretty big question. Most people ask me, they're like, well, when do you decide to wholesale, fix and flip, rent, creative, whatever it might be? This is honestly a longer video than I'd honestly want to put in the course modules. So we're going to keep this kind of high level here, but also answer most of the questions. So I'm going to take it from the top. We're going to take it from the top, go all the way down. So we're going to take everything and apply it in percentages. So like, let's say after repair value. So let's say a house is worth, for example, 100,000. We'll take that example. So if a house is like 100% plus like no equity or upside down, we are automatically going to go ahead and send that to short sale. That's like my number one thing now, especially since we get paid really good on referrals. If something has 100% no equity upside down, it does not make sense as a subject to deal. We're going to do it as a short sale. Again, sometimes it's just the best thing to do for that seller. So you got to make sure you've got all the tools in your belt. Normally anything from like 99% to 75%, we're going to play in kind of that realm of hybrid. So in that area, what we can do is we'll do seller finance, a hybrid, subject to, we'll do an outright novation if we need to. I don't like these really. I've only done a couple, but I really don't care for novation. You're basically a glorified realtor at that point. So might as well list it. So we'll either do like a seller finance hybrid. So we'll do a subject to and then do like a seller finance in second position if we can. If they want some money down, we'll do a subject to, we'll do novation, we'll list it if we need to. But again, the 99 to 75% is kind of where we find, hey, these are the different things we can do. If it's under 75%, we'll wholesale it. Just depends on the condition of the property, but 75% to below, we kind of open up the offer box to like whatever. At that point, we become wholesale. Really, it's wholesale, seller finance, hybrid, subject to, novation, list. If the property's in horrible condition, a lot of work. We'll do seller finance. If they own it free and clear, put some space between this. Yeah, there you go. So really this is what dictates it right here is we will, if it's in this range on the ARV, like what they're asking, what they really need, for example, on the mortgage, like obviously as we have more equity, more room to play with, we have more tools in our bag. And what we'll do is we always shoot for a wholesale deal first, and then we go from there and build it out. So like wholesale offer, normally 60%. If it's a messy title deal, we'll offer like 20%, 30% of value and go up from there. And we normally hover about, for like niche stuff, messy title stuff, I typically don't go over like 50% of ARV unless it's a really good deal, because we know that there's going to be work involved on the deal on the back end for the title. And then everything else, obviously above that, that's how we roll. Now, as far as deciding, hey, when do we want to wholesale, fix, flip, rent, creative, that's going to come down to you. So if you're really looking for a deal, you've got to understand like there's going to be points in your business, in your operation, that it makes sense to flip a deal versus wholesale it. For example, like us, I don't want to touch a fix and flip. I actually broke this rule last year, but on fix and flip for us, and I'll tell you, this is kind of what parameters I look at for it. We will wholesale anything that's a lot of work now, an older house. We can't be in and out in under 30. Like now market shifted. So if we can't be in and out in under 100 days, I don't want to touch it. I will wholesale it. So 90 days plus from acquisition to exit. If we can make, we will always prioritize a quick nickel over a slowdown. That's our preferred method. We'll fix and flip if it's a light rehab, especially now in the market in 2024. Light rehabs, sub 15 days rehab. Normally my minimum margin is we have to make $15,000 a month basically on the deal for it to make sense for me per month profit. So again, if we hold it for 3 months, we better be making $45,000 minimum on the deal, which that's honestly pretty targeted for our stuff. If it's a light rehab and we can be in and out, days on market supports it for like 30 days, 45 days. I'm not going to fix and flip it if it's only going to make us 15 grand, because our holding costs and everything is going to be, our holding costs, origination fees are going to be higher than what it makes sense to do. So we would wholesale it. But obviously, if it's a quick deal, we can make like $35,000-$40,000 on it net profit and only hold it for 30 days. I'll do the deal. I'll take it down as a fix and flip, but I prefer not to, because our origination fees, our points to our lenders, things like that. If we do a fixed to rent, there's, again, it's different factors. What's the DSCR rates for the time? Again, if it's 9%, we're probably not going to take it down unless we have a ridiculous amount of equity in there. And especially right now, I'm not going to take down anything that's less than 1.7%, maybe 2% DSCR right now, debt to service ratio. So for example, if my mortgage is $1,000 and it rents for $1,000, that's a 1% DSCR. I would prefer to get $2,000 for the rent and work from there. So I'm not touching any rentals right now, especially with the market. Fixed rent, and then we shoot for whenever we're done with the rehab, I want to be at least 65% all in, because I know at 70%, most of the hard money lenders, most of the DSCR lenders, they're going to cap you out at like 70%, 75% on your cash out refis, either cash out refis or your rate and term refis. They're going to cap you out about 70% once they factor in their loans, because a lot of people are thinking like, oh, I can cash out refi, I can get my money back up to 70%. And then they don't realize like, hey, there's origination fees and there's costs for that, and they're going to roll it into your loan. So that's why I try and shoot for 65% all in after the rehab, after the purchase, after everything's stabilized. And that's 65% of ARV. So if you're hoping your appraisal goes higher than what you thought, you might want to be crossing your fingers a little bit harder. And then creative, pretty much anytime creative finance, anytime a seller is willing to talk about it. So creative finance, again, I never say creative finance with the seller. I go like, hey, would you be open to selling it on terms? Would you be open to carrying the note? Things like that. People know. So if someone's willing to talk about that, we will offer them the low cash offer. But if they're willing to talk about creative finance, like subject to hybrid, novation, things like that, I will talk to them about that, and we will give them an offer based on it. Ideally, I would rather exit my deal as a wholesale or creatively versus fix and flip to rent, because it's the lowest cost to get in the deal. It's the lowest acquisition cost. And also it's the least amount of risk. I mean, it all has risk, but it's the least amount of risk for us on our deals like that. And then, but again, you can look at your numbers. If you're like, hey, we only flip properties that meet this buy box and we net 50 grand in 30 days. That's great. You're probably going to have to go for a higher price point, which means your holding costs are going to be higher. But again, your business model and what your ideal properties are going to be are way different than mine. And this is just to give you an outline of like what talking points, what to think about whenever you're looking at deals and underwriting them and going, hey, I've got a really great deal. It's got some title issues. Do we want to take it down? Because typically whenever you start wholesaling, you start doing deals, you know how to find deals, you're going to naturally progress to actually buying the deals, or you're going to get into other creative spaces. And you kind of want to know, like, what's my talking points now? Like, what makes me decide, let's do that? And I forgot which investor had mentioned this whenever I was first starting out, is they find out what the seller needs, and then they let the property tell them, like, here's what we need to do. And so you don't try and look at just one thing through one lens, because obviously if you're trying to fit like a square peg in a round hole, it's not going to work. So you got to be open to whatever the property needs, the seller needs are, and just have an idea of like what your standards are. And I will tell you, whenever I flip houses that are out of this buy box right here, like they're heavy rehabs, it might be like a 30-day rehab, and our profit margins are like, it's not really worth it timeline wise. Those are the ones that have come back to get me. So make sure you stick to your guns on it, stick to your rehab numbers. Do not let up on it. I'm telling you, stick to your buy box. There's a reason a lot of seasoned investors use that.